All right, welcome back. This is still the Polity reaching you live from our Abuja studios. Now, June 26th is the day set aside every year for the International Day Against Drug Abuse and Illicit Trafficking. Today we'll be taking a look at that subject and particularly the progress made so far in the country, the challenges and the way forward and recommendations to ensure the set goals by the United Nations and all other bodies and stakeholders involved. Today I've been joined by key experts in the field and on the topic to discuss the issue. I'll just take a moment and read out his profile a bit. I'm joined by Ambassador Kenneth Anetor. He's the Executive Director of a New Thing International Foundation. He has almost a decade experience in non-profit sector, and he earned a bachelor's degree in journalism and mass communication from Sikkim Manipur University. He's a certified trainer of the United Nations on Drugs and Crimes, and he was awarded a certificate for understanding addiction, identification, counseling, and treatment of opioid use disorder from Harvard Medical School on the 6th of April 2023. On the 25th of March, Ambassador Kenneth Anetor was awarded the African 40 Under 40 Honorary Award for Drug Abuse Control in Africa. Well, that's quite impressive. Good afternoon and welcome. It's good to have you.
It's a pleasure to be here.
All right, let's start with the basics of it. Clearly from your profile, you're in the field and you know what's happening. So I'd like to get a baseline at the first place. How well, taking Nigeria into context, are we doing in terms of the fight against drug abuse and illicit trafficking?
Okay. First of all, I'd like to thank you for this opportunity. In the celebration of this year's World Drug Day, the theme is Stop Stigma and Discrimination, Strengthen Prevention. So we're putting people first. And we're looking at breaking the barriers and all the negative associations that people have put to people that use drugs or people that have substance use disorder. Let me just use the right terms. In terms of the challenge of substance use in Nigeria, I would say that the NDLA is doing a lot in terms of drug demand reduction and in terms of supply reduction. But we can't leave everything to government. So that's why it's important that we have key stakeholders like the media. In terms of the intervention value chain, we have different stakeholders. First, we have the prevention. We have people that would go to schools to discourage people from initial usage of drugs. We have the NGOs, other civil society organizations that are involved in that. Then we have the next value chain. We have sensitization. People that would go to markets, religious places, other places to do programs to discourage usage of drugs. We now have the policy makers, people that will do advocacy, talk to policymakers so that they can do better policies, improve the existing policies that are already on ground. Then we have the people that work in the law enforcement. Those are the people that work in supply reduction. They have their own roles to play in terms of curbing the free passage of drugs within and outside through our borders and within the states. Then we have those working in harm reduction, understanding that sometimes people might want to use drugs. How can they help them as they're using the drugs to reduce harm to themselves, to reduce the amount of harm that comes to themselves when they use those drugs. Then we have those in rehabilitation. Nigeria has about 77 treatments, 70-something treatment centers as at the last time that I checked, of which 20-something are for government and the rest are for individuals. In terms of the drug usage challenge in Nigeria, according to the last study, we have about, for every 7 individuals in Nigeria, 1 is using drugs or has used drugs in the last 1 year, which means that if we look at your extended family, first in extended family, there's probably someone that has experimented with drugs. But when we now look at the context of for every 4 drug users, someone using drugs, 1 is a woman. And I'm very particular. For a while now, we've been particular. Our organization has been passionate about the gender challenges, the challenges that women face, because in Nigeria, women go faster from casual drug usage to problematic drug usage, especially because women might use drugs with multiple partners, are more likely to use drugs with multiple partners, especially when they're injecting drugs, which means that in a scenario, if a woman is with someone and they're using drugs in a group, when the drug usage for those people stops, the woman is more likely to be called to another partner to use drugs with the person. But in terms of treatment in Nigeria, there was a Nwendo study that was taken in treatment centers, in about 78 treatment centers in Nigeria, and it showed that in terms of treatment, for every 20 persons that are treated for substance use disorder, only one is a woman, which means women go faster from casual to problematic drug usage. And in terms of treatment, women are being treated less. Why is this? Brings us to the theme of the day. Because of the stigma. Women face a lot of stigma. They face stigma from caregivers. The woman might be in a treatment center, the nurses might be stigmatized. You're a woman, why are you here? You should be out. They also face stigma from their family members. Family members saying, why are you doing this? Why will you do this? They also face stigma from their fellow male drug users. I'm a man, you're a woman, you want to do drugs with me. And women are so dynamic and so unique, and that's why I feel this is a major challenge you need to look into in Nigeria. Women are so dynamic. Women handle the home, they handle their office, and they still stay and take very, very good control of the home in such a way that if we don't begin to address this major challenge, we're going to find out that a lot of children look up to their mothers. A woman is so dynamic that she could handle the responsibilities in the home, make sure that everybody, the husband goes to work, the children get to school, she goes and does her business, she comes, she does her drugs. After that, she prepares for everybody that's coming back from the home. And sometimes children will be watching this. When activists, civil society organizations and other people go to the schools and say that if you are doing drugs, you're going to go mad, the person sees the disparity in the information that is going on, sees that the mom or the dad is doing this and they're not. So we need to begin to address these challenges. Women are doing a lot of drugs compared to men that are getting less treatment, and they go faster from casual to problematic drug usage. So we need to begin to create better incentives in terms of addressing the women drug challenge in Nigeria.
Oh, that's really interesting, and a bit sad, but it's good that there's some attention coming to it. But you spoke about casual drug usage and all of that, and I wonder, on the issue of sensitization, I suspect that there are people perhaps watching this very program at this moment who don't think that they fit into this issue. And I'm wondering what level of drug abuse, or let me put it this way, the term drug abuse, how far does it range? I'll give an example. We see some persons who, I saw a joke the other day from a pharmacist. He said, he came to the pharmacy and he said, I need malaria and typhoid drugs. And the pharmacist said, you know, have you done a test? He said, no, I feel it's coming. And then he said, so I have to get, and then to add to the punchline, he said, I need for my wife and my wife and my kid too. And he said, is it, because it's not a transmittable disease, but he felt, you know, they were all about to come down. And I've seen this a lot where people just preemptively take drugs because they feel something coming. Does this fall within that range?
Okay. Let me set the trend right. We should have actually started at this place before delving into that. First of all, we need to understand what a drug is. A drug is any substance that once taken either changes the normal behavior of the body or the mind. It can be natural occurring or it can be man-made. Okay, then we'll now go to drug abuse. Drug abuse, for you to define drug abuse or for you to abuse a drug, there are 3 areas that must be captured. Either one of the 3 can be captured. First of all, using a drug without a doctor's prescription. Someone just feels the symptoms of something, which might be headache, and headache might be a symptom of something else going on in the person's body, but because he feels his headache and it's a symptom, the person now diagnosed himself and said, I need Panadol because of this thing that is going on. So the person goes to get the Panadol without a doctor's prescription. So that is drug abuse. Secondly, if a person now feels that headache and he talks to a doctor or a medical professional and the person says, okay, this is the symptom for this, you can take this particular thing, and the person now has the Panadol with him, or let's say cough, and now the person okay, I have an appointment, it's morning now, and I'm meant to take this one in the morning, one in the afternoon, one in the night. Because of my day, I might not have time to stop to drink water or anything. Let me just take the one for morning, afternoon, and night all at once. That is drug abuse. Then the third area that will be captured is that if you're using a particular drug that is not legal in the territory or in the country that you're using the drug. Some drugs you can't easily access. Some countries you can't easily access cannabis. Like Nigeria, cannabis is not legal, but some parts of the US is legal. There's some other drugs that are like that are illegal. But so that's first defining that area. Now to this area, of course, if you don't have a doctor's prescription for a particular drug and you are just getting it like that, that is drug abuse. It's plain. So we need to, it's whenever we have programs like this and we define this, we let people understand that you have been abusing some drugs. You need to change the way that you look at drugs. You need to change the way that you access drugs.
Oh, that's interesting. But speaking about, what leads to this, you spoke about how people can move from casual to problematic, and I believe that's what usually happens, where it seems as though things are okay and then all of a sudden it's something you can't do without. What's your advice in that regard? I say this because of one particular experience I believe a lot of people have had. Some persons who've started abusing drugs or who have become dependent on it, they tend to want to recreationally I should add, they tend to want to involve more people. Now there's a particular one I'm interested in, which is the cannabis, the weed. Now you'll be surprised to find that as much as you're here doing advocacy and sensitization against drug abuse, some persons who are users actually do sensitization for drug abuse. So you see them trying to convince people who don't indulge that it will make you think faster. For people who read or who are book inclined, they say if you take this, you become smarter. I've been on the receiving end. They said, come on, join us. It will help you. For musicians and entertainers, just take some before you go on stage. It helps you. How do we start to fight against all of these counter awareness, so to speak?
Last year's the theme was Share Facts, Save Lives. We've seen there was a training that the United Nations Office on Drugs and Crime did for us last year. It was drug education for secondary schools, and the whole nut of the whole thing was to share facts, share the informed facts, share the right facts. Don't go and tell people don't do drugs. Don't go and tell people do drugs. Just share the right facts and give them an opportunity to make an informed decision, because the facts are there. And in terms of going into drug usage, as you first said, there are a lot of factors that can influence a person's drug usage. It must not be that the person, it's not a moral issue that this person is a bad person. And people going into drugs, it's not like it's a moral issue. It's not a criminal justice issue. It is a public health challenge, because drug use, substance use disorder, which is what people refer to as this person has a drug abuse or is a drug abuser or is a, I don't want to say some hard words, is actually a chronic relapsing brain disorder that is characterized by a person going after a particular drug of choice, regardless of how it affects himself, his family, and his immediate society. And there are so many risk factors that exist that can push a person into drug usage, apart from peer pressure, which is obviously the main one that you're driving at. But there are other things. A person can come from an environment where drugs are readily available within the home. I've been at a secondary school, a primary school, not a secondary school, where someone had a can of cocaine. A student brought a can of cocaine to school, and he gathered some boys and took them to an area and told them that if you take this, it will make you strong, and if you do this, it will make you very, very strong. And they were about to indulge in it until a teacher intercepted them. So apart from drugs being readily available at home, there was a course, in the course I studied at Harvard Medical School. There was a course that were taught, the neurology of addiction. It proposes a theory that addiction can be transferred from generation to generation. Since it is drug, is a substance, it's a challenge of the brain, that when someone abuses a drug, it damages a particular part of the brain, and those parts of the brain that are damaged can be transferred from one generation to the next generation in such a way, making the generation, even though he has not taken that particular drug, become more susceptible to becoming addicted to that particular drug, in such a manner that if the person was ever to come in contact with that drug, the feeling of someone that's in that genealogy that had never taken that drug will be different from the feeling he would get. It now goes to now give examples of people that you say in the family that are alcoholics. The grandfather was an alcoholic, the father is an alcoholic, now the son is an alcoholic, because a trend had already been set. So if that person that comes from a family that they are more susceptible because of their genealogy to alcohol, it will mean that the person will have a different feeling from someone who that family never took drugs, and that person can easily get addicted. Now you can't compare that person to someone from another family. So that's another thing. Genealogy can affect addiction. If the person grows up in an environment where a lot of people are doing drugs, you can't tell him it's bad, because he's putting some of his idols, some of his uncles, associating them with the drugs, and he sees that these people are still productive. So a lot of factors can push a person that is using drugs, push a person into using drugs. So that's why we shouldn't look at it as a criminal justice issue. That's why we shouldn't be looking at giving a person 25 years imprisonment for doing drugs, which is what the person could face at the mercy of the judge. That's why we should be looking
You're talking about people who abuse drugs or people who traffic drugs, you know. At this point, which are you referring to?
You know, see, to be sincere, when we look at this matter holistically, understanding the context of the country that we find ourselves into, but we have a new leadership, and we believe that our new leader, Asiwanji, will do something better. But when we look at what is going on, first of all, when there's a raid, how do you differentiate the drug dealer from the drug user? Question one. Can answer my questions that I've been answering yours. Secondly, when the drug user and the drug dealer are now being interrogated, the drug dealer is probably likely to have more money to be able to exert some kind of influence than the drug user. So something could happen. Not that it will happen, but something could happen. And when you look at the context that the person can face 25 years, I think the drug dealer will use everything in his power to pin it on someone else. So when you say drug user, drug dealer, sometimes it's blurred. But the NDLA, they've been doing a lot in interrogating, and most times they always differentiate between them, but we cannot say that those instances don't exist. So
speaking about that now, what could be the alternative? Because like you said, the NDLA has truly been at work. I mean, I've seen so many things that
They have been also
I did not expect.
Leadership of retailed Brigadier General.
The issue now is even the manner in which they are caught. You know, I saw one once, a lace material. Somehow they put drugs in it. It's so interesting and alarming, the amount of creativity that goes into crime. But so that aside, what do you think, you know, an alternative could be, instead of saying go to jail for 25 years?
And we can assess the person's drug usage. We can look at community service. We can look at, there are so many different programs that we can look at. Currently, I was with Dr. Femi of the United Nations Office on Drugs and Crime yesterday. We're actually discussing this. He's doing a program in Borno State, listing alternative to incarceration. There's so many different alternatives. There are professionals, there are programs that have worked in other countries. There are a list of them that we can take a copy from that playbook internationally and see how we can implement it in the States. Because someone that was already disadvantaged by genetics to use drugs now becomes a victim, and now entering into the system to now come out as what? A first-time offender. If someone was like a first-time offender or something, let's look at a scenario that the person is at the mercy of a judge, and that judge maybe has someone that was trying to influence his son to use drugs, and is coming to meet this drug user in front of him. We should look at the person as a victim. He's a victim of circumstances of his environment, circumstances of his gene, or circumstances of peer pressure. So let's look at a way to reason alternatives to incarcerations for these ones that are victims. Remember, substance use disorder is a disease. It's not a moral challenge. It's not someone that is planning to be a criminal. It's just someone that has a health disorder.
All right. I believe that's fair enough. So let's talk a little bit now about solutions, you know, the way forward. What you said now is in respect to, it's sort of after the fact, where it's now time for punitive measures and so on. So let's talk about, preventive and otherwise.
Preventive, yes.
What are your recommendations for both aspects now? The aspect of non-governmental organizations and so on. And also, when you spoke about policies earlier, what are the policies that you think the government should be looking at?
The government is reviewing the NDLA Act. I believe we could have something that could look at the victims of substance use disorder. If they could observe a way to give a, let me not use that word soft landing, but let's stop the discrimination. I would look at the media. If the media could change their narrative on the way they report cases of substance use disorder, stop making the guys feel like criminals. There was a study that showed that a lot of people, between people that use drugs, how many people felt they need help? How many people felt that they want help but they don't know where to get help from? And how many people feel like they want to access help but because of discrimination they will not access help? So I believe that the media informs the mindset of a generation of the people. So the media has their own part to play in changing the narrative to let people know that these guys actually have a health challenge. It's a sickness, not criminality, not training to be cultist or training to be this. So when they change that narrative, and also in terms of policy, there are different policies that we can put in place. We have, if we look at education, there's a program that we ran. It was called, two programs that we ran for secondary schools. One was called Be Smart, Don't Start. The other one was called DAYS, Drug Abuse in the School Environment. We launched it and we ran the program in secondary schools. One of the schools that we ran the program in went to win an award and was presented the award by the former Vice President of Nigeria, Yemi Osibanjo. So now that there's someone in charge of policy, I believe Hadiza Bala Usman is the person in the essay to the President on policy. I believe she can look into these issues, begin to see how they can create a policy on education. Some schools don't have a drug abuse policy. It is if they catch a student with drugs, it's out. Out to where? To become a nuisance, to feel like he's a criminal, and now he will definitely go into another school. He's entering that other school like a criminal. What are the ways that we address these issues in schools? Can we create drug policies in schools? Can we create policies for handling these particular issues? Can we review the NDLA Act? There are so many things that can be done. Also, we can do proper sensitization on judges for judicials. So on how to address this issue, we could do sensitization programs for them. We could do sensitization program for legislators so that maybe there are community intervention projects. They can channel it towards the youth, ending this reign of substance abuse among the youths. There's so many things that can be done to prevent these programs. Also, there are international programs that have already been tested with international efficacy. We've been trained on some. There's drug education. That one is for basically for high school students, but it can also be used for a wide audience. There is DPTC trainings. There are different trainings that have international efficacy. There's the Strengthening Families program. I have some civil society organizations that are working on implementing it in the Northeast. There are a lot of programs. We just need the right team, the right support, and this government to take hold of these programs and run with these things that are already working in other countries, that have been tested in Nigeria, that are working, and just to implement. We did some drop-in centers, some community-based harm reduction, some community-based intervention services, and they did about 6. They launched some in different geopolitical zones, and already those centers were flooded. There are some that they dedicated basically only to handling the unique needs of female drug users, and in fact they overpassed their targets in reaching out to these women, because when women saw that their unique needs, because women have unique needs, when they saw that their unique needs, treatment needs were being met, they came out. They saw that there was no judgment, no prejudice, and they came out. So I believe that this substance abuse challenge that the nation is facing, it's not like a dead end. There's light at the end of the tunnel. We just need the right help, because these are our mothers, these are our brothers, these are our sons, our daughters. We are the only ones that can help them and give them that support to see the light at the end of the tunnel.
All right, thank you so much, Ambassador Kenneth Anetor.
It's a pleasure.
I don't know if you have any other thing you feel that we should have touched before we round up.
Okay.
There is a question I have, though. This is just that I believe you've covered everything already. I'm just wondering what your thoughts are. about this suggestion. It's believed that in places or in certain places where drugs like cannabis is not illegal, that there is less, will I say, abuse or less, and that sometimes that, what's the word? That red tape, not red tape, pardon me, that thing stopping people from it oftentimes encourages them to do it because it's this, I don't know, what do you make of that idea?
Let me give you facts. I was in a meeting, UN meeting, the Commission on Narcotic Drugs last year, and during the meeting, these facts were brought up about areas where they did drugs, that the drugs had, areas where they legalized marijuana, that the crime rate had dropped. But also, they noticed that there was a spike in adolescent drug usage, and there was also a spike in mental health challenges. So the crime dropped, but the mental health challenges rose. I don't think we are planning to increase mental health challenges in Nigeria. You would only hear that the crime dropped because it's not legal. So people are not going to hide to do these drugs. People are not going to go to bunkers, going to associate with criminals or this thing to do the drugs or hide to get the drugs. But they had serious increase in mental health challenges. So the psych wards were now being filled with people, schizophrenia and other associated disorders that can arise from substance use. So when we weigh the merits and the merits of legalization, I've never been a fan to say that we should legalize drugs, never, but we can decriminalize it. We can look at these people as victims of a situation instead of just calling them criminals.
All right, away from the legal aspect, something you said repeatedly that it just struck me now is that it is a disorder, or it's a
yes, it's a chronic drug substance abuse disorder. It's a chronic relapsing brain disorder that is characterized by a person going after a particular drug of choice, regardless of how it affects himself, his family. Another chronic relapsing disorder is cancer. You can treat it completely, it's gone, but it can relapse. Diabetes can relapse sometimes. There are other diseases like that can relapse. So why would you make that person suffering from this challenge a criminal?
Yes.
So we need to stop the stigma, stop discrimination, strengthen prevention. Let's put people first.
Just so, again, that particular point you made, where you also, said that it is not, it doesn't make these people bad people or, evil, like they say. So actually, these things stem from a place. So I'm wondering about those institutions, religious institutions, the family setting. I believe at the end of the day, this is where most of the stigma could come from. Look at this, let me not use the word, but we can see that happening there. So in all of this, how do we factor in bringing the religious persons, whether it's the church or the mosque or wherever, so that they are aware of the key facts and they don't go about stigmatizing and so on?
Personally, I know some CSOs that have made it a point of duty to sensitize religious leaders on these particular issues. I know a couple of individuals that have made it a point of duty to do sensitization programs. That's why I described the value chain, the whole value chain. I spoke about people involved in prevention, people involved in sensitization. Sensitization will cover those leaders, changing the narrative of those people. Then I spoke about the people involved in advocacy, changing the narrative and the mindset of the legislators, the executives, so that they can be more informed and prefer better solutions and work on better policies. And I spoke about the enforcement and I spoke about the enforcement and those that are doing harm reduction. So there are different individuals, stakeholders in the value chain, and everybody has their own duty to do. Those involved in sensitization, I tell you that they're speaking to clergies more than you know. Yes. All
right, thank you so much. Hopefully the clergies also carry on the sensitization. Thank you so much for coming, Ambassador Kenneth. It's been a pleasure. Thank you. All right, you heard it straight there from the experts. Ambassador Kenneth Anetor speaking on the International Day for Prevention of Drug Abuse and Illicit Trafficking. So we'll end the program on that note. And again, I hope you remember, it's people first, stop stigma and discrimination, strengthen prevention. Thank you so much. It's been a pleasure See you tomorrow. The Polity reaches you every weekday, 2 p.m. to 3:30 p.m. See you. Bye for now. I am Amadin Ogbewe.